Hey guys, good morning. I'm back on the YouTube, back from Hoonigan, back in the shop. It's time to grind. I've started a new project and I'm gonna be boosting the red one. It's just gonna be front wheel drive, stock KF block, like 5 pounds of boost, 5 to 8 pounds of boost, just a fun daily driver. I'm gonna be posting it up for sale to get more funds for the MX-3, but if I can't afford it, I will keep the car. It's a beautiful car, it's been repainted. I'm gonna be showing more of it later, but the car is just great. I got a really good deal on it, and I got the fully built engine for the front. That's why, the front engine in the purple one, that's why I initially bought it for the block in the front of my purple one. Anyways, yeah, so I'm gonna be doing a turbo build. I'm gonna be doing the exhaust, all TIG welded, front to back. Might even do wastegate routed back into the exhaust so it's not stupid loud for the street. I don't know what I'm gonna do yet, but it's gonna be sweet. There's 6 parts to turboing a vehicle. You need a fuel system, injectors, and a fuel pump. That's what you need at a minimum. And an exhaust system. You can either go on eBay, get hot pipes. You need a wastegate. You need an intake system, so you need turbo pipes from your cold side on your turbo to your intake. You could get a blow-off valve and intercooler. You do not need a blow-off valve, or you do not need an intercooler. Those are optional. Blow-off valve is letting off pressure when it's not needed, when your throttle plate closes. And people do say you need them. You do not need them. If you let off and you don't have a blow-off valve, it will come out of the turbine. It is harder on things, but it does still work. I've used it. I've never had a problem. I've not used it, and I've also never had a problem. Intercooler, you need it for high boost. You do not need it for low boost. That is my opinion. Anyways, your oil system, you need in and out for your turbo. You need oiling to go in your turbo with pressure from your oil pump, and you need it to go back into your oil pan. So there's other turbos that do not need this because they have their own system of oiling, so it's not connected to the engine's oiling system. But most cheap turbos, and turbos in general, most have an in and an out for turbo oil. And management, you need to be able to turn up the fuel for the air that's compensating, and you need to change your timing. So you either need a plug and play ECU, a piggyback ECU, or you can get somebody to flash your computer on your computer ECU. And you also need a turbo. You can make endless choices on that. You can go from a small turbo, big turbo. Big turbos, there's more laggy. Small turbos, they have less lag. You can get dual scroll turbos. There's lots of options, but I'm gonna say what I'm going with so you guys can have a list of what I'm doing to mine. When I turbo my cars, I keep it stupid simple because if there's issues, it's easier to fix. It's easier to pull the engine out, easier to pull the tranny out, less stuff in the way, cheaper. So I'm gonna tell you what I'm running in this red car. So for injectors, I'm gonna run 375cc injectors. I had to modify them into my rail, and I'm completely cool with that. I made it sleek, so it's actually smaller rails than stock, but pumps out more power. Fuel pump, I'm gonna run a 255 Walbro or something larger like an AEM 500, but at a minimum, I'm gonna do a 255. For oil lines, I'm doing an in and out with braided to pass tech. If you want to drag race, you need a braided line in and out. Oil fittings, I'm gonna show you what I have there. If you're going straight to your oil pump, which I do, because I think that's the best place to get a source for oil, you need a fitting that adapts from your engine blocks hole for your oil pump to a oil braided line fitting. I will show you that in a couple minutes. Wastegate, I'm gonna run a 38 mil Turbo Smart. That's more than enough for a smaller engine to get the air out. So what wastegates do is they let air out when you want your turbo to stop spooling up. Because if you don't have a wastegate, your turbo will spin to the moon and overboost. ECU, I'm gonna be running a PNP stratified standalone. I can tune it from my computer. I'm used to it, so I'm comfortable with that. I'm gonna do Disty mods, which is distributor. I'm gonna do MSD coil and ignition module to get a better spark because the factory system in my car is garbage, in my opinion. So it needs replaced, it's not reliable. And for turbo, I'm running a 6350 T3 flange. So it bolts up to a T3 flange, and the hot side is 63, the cold side's 50. For the flanges I'm buying flanges because I'm making my exhaust system. I bought a 38 millimeter flange for my wastegate and a T3 flange for my turbo, that's T3. My blow-off valve, I'm not using one. And intercooler, I'm not using one. Blow-off valve, you do not need. It's optional, believe it or not. An intercooler, you do not need one as well. Without an intercooler, your intake pipes get a lot shorter because you don't have to route them behind your bumper and then loop them around everything that's in the way and back to your intake. It's a pain in the butt to route them. It's a pain in the butt to make them. If you just run a turbo without no intercooler, all you need to go is from your turbo to your intake, and then you're done. So much easier to remove, just less bullshit. And yeah, blow off valve, you don't need one, because when you let off the throttle, the air will come out of the turbine. It is harder on your turbine, but it will not make it fail. From my experience, it's fine. It sounds great, loud, very loud blow off noises, and it just is cheaper. It's less vacuum lines and all that. So yeah, this is the system I'm gonna be running, and I am going to get a start on it. This is the fitting I was talking about. So this side goes into the engine, which is the oil pump, and this side goes to a braided line that goes to the turbo. In my opinion, this is the best way to do it to get proper oiling. Okay, I'm getting right into it. I'm taking off the intake and I'm gonna do the injectors. All right, I'm gonna take the injectors off of the intake now and go from there. Okay, the injectors are off. Now I've got to remove all these little screw heads to get to the injectors. The most important part of a turbo setup is getting the fuel system right. You need a fuel pump, you possibly need bigger fuel lines, bigger fuel injectors, for sure. So right now I'm just gonna be taking out the stock ones and installing twice the size injectors, because I know I'm gonna be pushing at least twice the fuel from factory. Say you turboed your car and drove it. You hit the gas and your turbo spools up and it starts forcing air into your intake. Your computer doesn't know what to do, and it pretty much doesn't change anything from what it would have been, maybe a little bit more, but there's getting forced air into your engine and your injectors can't keep up, your ECU doesn't know what to do, and that could cause a lean condition because there's more air than the fuel that it thinks it's getting. So that could self-destruct the engine. So you always want to get fuel injectors and a fuel pump at minimum. Turbochargers force air into the intake, and to compensate and make power, you have to force more fuel into your intake as well. Here are the old stock injectors, and here are the new injectors that are twice the size in CC. These ones are 350 cc each, so it should do the trick for low boost, no problem. So the way these work is there's a O-ring here, and then there's an O-ring here. This one blocks the fuel from the fuel rail from going in the engine uncontrolled, and this one stops the fuel from coming out the top of the injector rail. So fuel is constantly in between these two O-rings here, and it gets fed through this little shield right here, and it gets sucked in as the injector needs, and it squirts in with very, very quick bursts of fuel. And that's all timed through voltage and through your computer timing with the injectors and all that good stuff. Here's the top of your injector. To get them out, you just gotta spin them and pull them out. This is the empty fuel rail. All I gotta do now is push them in, and later on I'm going to have to make a wiring harness for each one and each rail and have them plug into the factory wiring harness. So that's the trickiest part, is making the wiring harness, because these ones, they're wired in through two prongs on these stupid plastic things in there, but that doesn't work with the aftermarket stuff, right? So I'm gonna have to make a wiring harness after. That's no problem. I've done this multiple times on the purple one. My injectors on the purple one are the exact same style, but mine on the purple MX3 are 875 cc. Okay, I would say that I'm done, but I'm not. I'm far from done. The injectors are in the rails, so the only thing that has happened here is the injectors are in the rails. So it still needs wired. It still needs custom pieces made to hold them in. So today I'm going to make TIG welded pieces of stainless or steel, I haven't decided yet, and I'm gonna weld little straps that go from each, because when there's pressure from the actual fuel pump, it could pop them out. On the stock system, this stock setup would hold them down, so you didn't have to worry about that for stock. But I have to for this, obviously. Not a big deal. It's a lot of fun making brackets, and I'll show you how I do them. And at this point, I do not have connectors. Well, actually I do, right here, but I'm gonna get brand new ones because that's how I roll. They're not expensive. and I like having things on my fuel system very respectably clean. Anyways, I'm going to order up some of the connectors, and on the top of my injector rail that's factory, which I'm not using anymore, it gives you hints on where you can buy connectors for it. So I think, no, I don't have it upside down. This says Denso. So I'm gonna go on eBay and look up a Denso connector for an angled injector like this and order it. I'll leave a link in the, or I'll leave a screenshot in the video. Okay, I just cut these 2 pieces of steel here. I'm gonna use this top one. Oop, that's really hot. I'm gonna use this top one for going across on the top of the injector, and then I'm gonna bridge down from here to here with the small strap, and then it'll just be screwed in so this injector cannot go up. So now I'm just cutting them out. Okay, I'm making the brackets for the injectors, and what I did was just cut out of like a 1/4 inch plate, and now I'm gonna add a smaller 1/8 piece there, so when that's tightened, it's holding down that green piece of plastic. So what I'm gonna do is tighten these down, tack the ends with my TIG, then I can take them off, fully weld them, and grind them up, make them look pretty, paint them. Okay, so what I've been doing here is welding up these top pieces. I welded the exact thickness of the plastic right here, this thickness right there, down on here. So I can easily weld while not burning up my injector. So I can place a piece here and then place another piece on top, and then that acts as my cap, like these ones. Okay, it's time to weld them all on. But before I do that, I'm gonna clean these rails up and make sure they're not full of any things that'll contaminate my fuel. And I'm gonna sand the outsides and paint them, and also cut this tab off because I'm not running this stock piece anymore. So I don't need that, and I always tend to get rid of things I don't need. So got them all sanded up. They're looking good. I took the casting flash off this side on both, make them look a little bit more presentable. Cut off the pieces I don't need. Ready to rock, gonna paint them. Painted all these little guys up. They're ready to go on to the rails. I homemade TIG welded retainers for my injectors. Turned out pretty good. All right, I'm happy with that. Now I just ordered connectors for the injectors. These are Denso, like I explained before. All you gotta do is search up eBay, then the search engine on eBay, Denso connectors for injectors, and they'll pop right up. I'll just put a screenshot up here, and then you can see what you would need to order if you were doing this exact same setup as I am. Looks good. Pieces are cut out that aren't needed there, so it's gonna slip in and out of my intake a lot easier, because normally there's this big piece of shit on top, and it's really hard to get them in and out of the actual intake. So this is gonna be much easier to work on in the future, so I'm pretty happy about them. Each fuel rail is gonna have its own wiring harness to a plug that's on my factory wiring harness for the MX-3. I'm just gonna have to buy connectors and make my own connectors to go to the stock harness. Not a big deal, just order some 4-pin connectors on Amazon, whatever, and I'll show you how to wire it up later, but I gotta wait until they come in. These injectors are 375 cc, if I do remember correctly. They are off of a 323, and it's an easy, cheap injector fuel system. Other than you have to either buy retainers or make them. I made them. It wasn't a big deal. It was good that I got some practice on the TIG for really small stuff, because those are literally smaller than my thumbnail. So it was good practice for low amps and all that stuff. So yeah, I'm gonna continue with the injectors later, and I'm gonna move on to the engine. All right, that's enough for today. I've got a lot more coming in the future with this car and engine and turbo, all that good stuff. So this is the first video. I want you to keep posted for the second one to come out. It's just gonna go more in depth, and it's actually gonna get more exciting because once I get to the point where I'm taking the exhaust, it's gonna be really cool. And once it goes in the car and everything, it's just gonna be so sweet because it's gonna be so different than anybody else has made them, because that's just what I do. And I wanna have the turbo in different placements. I'm gonna have everything fresh. So the second video is me freshening up the engine, cleaning it up, and just getting it ready to put all my new turbo stuff on. Okay, we'll see you next time. Have a good one. Subscribe.